we don't talk to many folks in the finance game for the publicly traded markets, and one such company is Ironridge Global Partners. And I want you to go to ironridgeglobal.com to find out. But these folks, these guys are investors. These are institutional type investors. They're private equity investors. They help companies. They help public companies in financing operations. I met a gentleman by the name of John Kirkland a while ago, and he's a very solid guy based upon his experience in placing several $100 billion in public financing. He's an attorney. He's had clients such as Goldman Sachs and GE Capital and Bank of America. And I talked to John on Friday. I said, we need to have you on the air because I think it would be important for people to kind of pull the covers back on that side of the business. So joining me from Ironridge is John Kirkland, the managing director. John, thanks for stopping by, buddy. Appreciate it.
Thanks for having me, Sully.
Hey, John, can you explain for Joe Sixpack Investor, just the Johnny Lunch Bucket here, sort of, how public companies raise capital? Because I think a lot of people, and I know many of us many of the folks watching and listening to the program are sophisticated enough to realize when you buy and sell stock, it's an auction, then none of that money actually goes to the company. But there are times when companies have to raise money, and there's other than doing a secondary offering, there's other ways to do that. John, can you kind of comment on sort of the state of financing for publicly traded companies?
Well, we really focus on the micro-cap, small-cap end of the spectrum, and for those companies, it's really a tough row to hoe to try to find money these days. For bigger companies, what they do are underwritten offerings by investment banks that get a slew of investors. For little companies, what they typically do is look for individual investors, almost like looking for private equity when you're a private startup company.
It's almost like when you're starting from scratch. It's like the Family and Friends program, sort of.
Sadly, yes.
With respect to sort of the state of that small cap, because we do a segment on the program called Small Caps Are People Too, and it's wildly popular because there's a lot of companies out there, John, and since you're an investor in those companies, there's a lot of companies out there that have a great management team. They've got a solid market size. They've got a good path of liquidity. They've got a good barrier to entry. There's some proprietary advantage there, yet they have trouble raising capital. So in other words, these are companies that look and smell like a big board company, but happen to be on the small caps. How do first of all, are there more or less of those companies than there were 5 years ago? And are there strengths in investing in things like that?
Well, one of the key value propositions of small caps is that there's inefficiency in pricing because there are companies out there that nobody knows about. And I always say when we look for a company, I value a company the way that Warren Buffett does, and I price it based on the stock as it's trading today.
Okay.
If there's a delta between those two, I write a check.
Okay, so and at the end of the day, there's that market cap basically, and for some of our new investors watching and listening to us, especially on Armed Forces Radio, the market cap is basically the number of outstanding shares times the share price. Now, suddenly, some business owners and some CEOs and directors will argue that market cap has nothing to do with their valuation, but at the end of the day, the value really does come down to what you're willing to pay for a share of stock, right, John?
Well, the price of the company and its market cap is based on what it's trading that day. The value is based on the underlying fundamentals. So I try to find what the real value is and see if I can buy it for less. So if the stock price is lower than what I think the true value is, that's the buying opportunity.
How would that translate to just a Joe Sixpack investor that's perusing through stocks? Is there a method to your madness? You obviously get access to information that we all can get access to, but having a conversation with the CEO is quite different. You can have a conversation with the CEO. Johnny Lunchbucket normally can't. Is there a way to look at that through a lens that is not obvious to the normal investor?
Well, the disadvantage of the small caps is that there's less information available, but the big advantage to small caps is that there's less information available. So
okay, explain that.
The playing ground is really leveled because for the big, huge companies, every scrap of information is out there. So it's all about analysis, and you're never going to compete with the high-level guys who've got huge mega computers and massive staffs because they can do analysis better than you can when they've got complete information. They can't do that with microcaps because they don't have the data. So you're on an even playing field with the big boys.
Boy, I'll tell you, and that in and of itself is worthy of maybe taking a look at some of these companies. His name's John Kirkland. The name of the company, Ironridge Global Partners. John, stay with me for a second there. I'm going to go back to John right after the break here. Also going to talk to Wayne Allen Root. You should go to ironridgeglobal.com. Ironridgeglobal.com. Interesting look at how a somewhat institutional investor takes a look at investing. Not so different than what you can do. Big Biz Show, BigBizShow.com, CBS Radio, Armed Forces Radio, Business Talk Radio, Biz TV, TiVo, and Time Warner Cable. Stand by. The one company that does have an exit strategy on everything they invest in, of course, is Ironridge Global Partners. I wanted to bring these guys on. John Kirkland is the managing director of Ironridge Global Partners. He is an attorney. He's handled several $100 billion in public offerings and placements over the years, both debt and equity. And I thought it'd be interesting for you to see sort of what it's like from that end as an investor. You know, because Johnny Lunchbucket, you and I don't really get to see how the larger investors invest money, but it's interesting how the research that he does, as John just told us, is very similar to the research that we do. John, before I let you out of here today, it's interesting to me as we've covered some of these big companies as well as some of these micro-cap companies over the last 17 years on the air. It's interesting sometimes how micro-cap companies aren't affected as much as the broad market. Do you find that as well?
Pick any period of time from 1929 until today. Year to date, last month, last year, last 5 years, last 10 years. And the biggest growth driver in the market as a whole is small caps, and the biggest growth driver in small caps is micro caps. The smaller the company, the bigger the growth. And the reason is obvious. You shorted Apple because it's the biggest company in the world.
Yeah.
Or maybe second, depending on the day.
Yeah, right. Between ExxonMobil.
Once
right.
Every preschooler's got an iPhone, what's the growth? You know, you give your dog and your cat iPhones, there's nowhere to go.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
But a micro cap has immensely more growth potential, and enough of them realize it that the sector as a whole almost always grows more than the market as a whole. So it's where the true potential is.
Now, of course, and we all hear about the warnings about investing in micro cap stocks, and of course, you know, we play, I can't tell you how many hundreds of disclaimers on this show every time we even mention a micro cap stock. But just because there are a few risky investments out there, if you do diligence, all investments are risky, right, John? I mean, you're
not a few risky investments. It's huge risk, and huge risk means huge reward. So it is not for the faint of heart. You may lose all your money. You may double, quadruple, 10x your money.
Is there a checklist that you guys use when you look at that to make sure it's not the former or it's the former, not the latter?
We look at fundamentals and we look at technicals. And first and foremost, we look at the management team. Who are the people? Are they good? Do they know what they're doing? Are they smart? What's their business plan? Does it make sense to me? It's first and foremost common sense. Does it make any sense to create this business? Is this a business I would want to do? That's question one, and you go from there.
Yeah, the name of the company, Ironridge Global Partners. John, thanks for dipping in. I want to lean on you some more here over the weeks and months because I think you give us a really solid approach and a good view of what it's like to invest on that end. And once again, ironridgeglobal.com. John, thanks so much for swinging by.
Thank you, Sully.
Talk to you soon. All right, John Kirkland, good guy.